Part 29. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeon. Chapter 281. Summer night. The moonlight is like water, filling the courtyard of the back house. The mottled tree shadows sway on the blue stone. The starlight and the lanterns on the eaves complement each other. The three siblings were sitting at a small table. Mu Qingjian opened a can of cold beer and handed it to her brother. Lin Xian was holding Mu Qingtian on his lap and eating Mu Qingtian, who looked like a kitten. The old father took a tissue and wiped the eldest daughter's oily mouth. Mu Qingtian kept stuffing skewers into her mouth while her eyebrows were dancing. Quietness and warmth echoed between the three siblings. Both sisters were looking at Lin Xian with soft eyes. It's obviously an ordinary barbecue, but it tastes delicious. A man can still bring you a barbecue and milk tea when he is busy fighting violence and protecting his family and country. This affection, which may be worth less than 100 yuan, is much more profound and meaningful than those vows and sweet words. Contentment and happiness have already filled their hearts. Happiness may be a momentary thing. But for women, often this moment is enough. Uncle is not angry with me, is he? After taking a sip of beer, Lin Xian took the cigarette from Mu Qingjian and took a puff. Blow out a puff of cigarette into a smoke ring and watch it float in the air. I originally agreed to go see my father-in-law. Let's have a showdown between Lao Deng and Huang Mao. As a result, he was called away by Zhou Lai. After all, the love between children cannot be compared with national affairs. Lin Xian actually wanted his future father-in-law to understand the importance of what was important. Of course, whether people understand it or not depends on their mood, and you don't need any excuse whether to use the knife or not. Won't. Mu Qingjian took a sip of beer and looked at him with autumn eyes. Just make another appointment. Don't listen to your beloved concubine comfort you, she is lying to you. Mu Qingtian's cheeks were bulging, and her peach blossom eyes were looking at her brother with a bad smile. You didn't go, and my dad was angry. He also said that if you dare to let him go, you won't be allowed to shit on his head in the future. He said that he would wait until later. When I see you, I must beat you. Lin Xian, Omega. Real or fake? My father-in-law is a bit ungrateful and arrogant. But just listen to what the pervert says. If you take it seriously you will lose. Don't listen to her nonsense. Mu Qingjian rolled her eyes at her sister. He knows you are busy with business and won't care. I'll just say it. Lin Xian nodded, pinched Mu Qingtian's thin waist, and glared. Are you provoking me? I am. Mu Qingtian said in an arrogant voice. What do you want? As a sister, I always want to bully my brother. Let me tell you, I have dignity. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and looked at her very fiercely. Believe it or not, I will beat you. Hey, it's so fierce. People are so scared. Mu Qingtian puffed up her chest and came close to her brother's face. Hit me. If it hurts, who will feel bad? Lin Xian. Threaten others with yourself. This method can only be used by women. I couldn't laugh or cry, and I really compromised. What the patriarch said is absolutely correct. There is always a girl who comes into this world specifically to torture you. Don't deceive me. Where's your dignity? Mu Qingtian bit her lip, smiled, and continued to provoke. What is dignity? Lin Xian said seriously. Second daughter. They underestimated their brother's face. Have a future. You're so bad, you never fall for it? Mu Qingtian, who was unsuccessful in provocation, was a little unwilling. She hugged her brother's neck and acted cute, and asked sweetly, then let me ask you, among the 100 million people, who do you choose? The person who invented and sent propositions should really die. Lin Xian rolled his eyes and said feebly, choose you. Ha ha. Mu Qingtian twisted her small waist and was so happy that she hugged her good brother and kissed her, giggling. What about 100 billion and others? Choose you. Lin Xian was tired. Real or fake? Mu Qingtian looked at him in disbelief. Why would you choose someone else? What's wrong? Lin Xian pursed his lips. That's 100 billion. Mu Qingtian clicked her tongue and said, do you really choose sister? 100 billion. Lin Xian smiled evilly. Sorry, I misheard just now. I thought it was 1,000 yuan. What do you mean? Mu Qingtian hit him with her small fist. What do you choose? Choose 100 billion, Lin Xian did not hesitate. Why are you like this? Mu Qingtian was furious. Isn't he worth 100 billion? No, because you are so worth it. Lin Xian looked serious. That's why I chose 100 billion. Mu Qingtian. The CPU is dry burning. What's the meaning? Mu Qingjian, who was watching the show on the side, almost laughed out loud and rolled her eyes at her younger brother. Then let me ask you. Mu Qing, who was confused, said sweetly, who do you choose between Qinyi and Qingjian? Sister Qingjian. Lin Xian still did not hesitate. How could you choose her? Mu Qingtian glared at him fiercely. You don't even want money and you choose her. If it's someone else, you choose money. The money is all fake. Lin Xuanqiu smiled, but Sister Qingjian is real. Wouldn't it be a loss if you don't choose me? Kill you. Mu Qingtian was so angry that she grabbed Lin Xian's neck and shook her. Tell me, who do you choose between Qingjian and me? I. Lin Xian had a flat face. Then I won't choose, I'll go, okay. You bastard. Mu Qingtian said coquettishly, hugged Lin Xian's head and started to bite it. Watching her brother and sister playing, Mu Qingjian curled her lips to watch the show. But she found that Lin Xian was looking at her, and they smiled at each other. The tacit understanding and tenderness can be felt without words. You are so annoying, always using your eyes to draw silk and knit sweaters. Watching her brother and sister flirting with each other, Mu Qingtian was jealous. Oh, this sour smell of love. How is it possible? Lin Xian said righteously, I only have eyes for you. When facing an angry girlfriend, you must learn when to tell the truth and when to lie. Sometimes you lie to her, she will be happier. Because women in love are best at hypnotizing themselves, quotes from the ancestors. Really? Mu Qingtian turned from anger to joy. If she disappeared from this world, would you find a girl who looks like your sister? You are not allowed to choose Qingjian. In that case. Lin Xian shook his head, no. Ah. Mu Qingtian was confused again. Why? I want to try something new. Lin Xian smirked. Lin Xian. This time, not only Mu Qingtian was angry. Even Mu Qingjian was angry. The two sisters teamed up to beat up their brother. This bastard, you still want to try something new? Why don't you go to heaven? Playing and laughing. Unknowingly, it was late at night. After cleaning up the table, Lin Xian hugged his two sisters and went to the bathroom. At that time, we didn't understand what forever meant. It was a long time later that we knew. Forever is not before, nor after. It is the happy time. It is forever. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Qixiun Zhong. Chapter 282. A quiet bedroom, a warm bed. Lin Xian lies in Mu Qingjian's arms. Their breaths intertwine, their heartbeats synchronized. The two siblings enjoy this rare warmth and tranquility. Sister. Lin Xian arched his face in her arms, muffled. Mu Qingjian's beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of tenderness. When did you fall in love with me? Lin Xian murmured. Mu Qingjian wanted to laugh. Is he taking the path of women, leaving them with nowhere to go? You know, this kind of question is what girls like to ask the most. Go on, Lin Xian asked. Mu Kinjian's fair cheeks were covered with rouge. How could she say such words of like or dislike? After thinking for a while, she whispered helplessly, "There is a house, which is not very good. There are no doors or windows, and I have never thought of letting others live in it." But one day, a man suddenly appeared, broke into the house, and lived there. The house is very cold, there is no heating, no air conditioning. She thinks the man will not live there for long. Maybe soon, the man will find the shortcomings in the house that are difficult to hide. She didn't have any illusions. But I didn't expect that the man not only installed windows for the house, but also installed a door. With his repairs, the house gradually became like a home, cool in summer and warm in winter. Mu Kinjian hugged him in her arms tightly. "Are you satisfied? It means I trained well." Lin Xian laughed in her arms. "Yes." Mu Kinjian patted his head, "You've trained me the best. Look at when we first met, you were cold, arrogant, and acted like a princess all day long. You weren't cute at all." Lin Xian smiled and said, "Look at me now, you're so feminine. You've become a goddess that a mortal like me can contradict." Mu Kinjian pinched his cheek and said angrily, "Is this a proper contradiction?" Since being with Lin Xian, she is no stranger to highways. Sometimes when her brother drives, she can barely keep up with the speed. "Don't worry about these little things." Lin Xian smirked, "Go to sleep." Qingtian is right. Mu Kinjian bit her plump lips, "If it weren't for the status of the two families, you would have eaten us up long ago. Woman, please watch your tone." Lin Xian rolled his eyes, "The one lying in your arms is a national hero. Heroes are great." Mu Kinjian's eyes were full of teasing colors, and she glanced at him, "Isn't it still lying in my arms, like a baby?" Lin Xian. "Don't talk, we are still good siblings." Mu Kinjian didn't tease him, and asked with a smile, "What does it feel like to be a policeman? Why do you like it so much?" "Feeling." Lin Xian raised his head, rested his head on the pillow, and stretched out his arms. Mu Kinjian naturally rested her head on his shoulder. "To be honest, I was very excited when I first reported to the police force." Reminiscences appeared in Lin Xian's eyes, "But when I came into contact with the first case, I was very scared." Scared, Mu Kinjian was a little surprised. He would also be afraid? "I am also a human being, and I am afraid of death. There is no need to pretend in front of his woman." Lin Xian smiled and said, "In addition, thinking that I have finally become a policeman who can uphold justice and eliminate violence, I am more likely to be excited." Slowly, this excitement turned into calmness, fatigue, and persistence. "If I don't persist, I am worried that I will become a deserter, take off my police uniform and leave my dream. Then I go to work every day, investigate cases, work overtime, investigate cases, sleep, investigate cases, in a continuous cycle. When I was a child, I always thought that the high-ranking police were so awesome and handsome, but when I really became a policeman, I found that I could neither go to the sky and the sea, nor live like a normal person. I always feel addicted to playing games. When I encounter a case, it's like entering a game. The process of investigating the case is like passing a level, and the final closing of the case is like killing the boss, then, continue to start the next game. Sometimes I feel very strange myself. When I don't want to find a girlfriend, marriage is not a must in life, and the desire to buy a house and a car has also faded. Maybe also there is no way. The houses in Beijing are too expensive. Just thinking about the house prices makes people despair. But I also thought about it at that time. When I die, I will occupy a grave, which can make up for the regret of not being able to buy a house during my lifetime." Lin Xian laughed at himself, "And I have integrity. I can't live off others, not in this life." "Ha ha." Mu Kinjian laughed, raised her rosy lips, kissed the corner of her brother's lips, and rested her head on his chest to listen to his heartbeat. What happened later? Later, I took good care of him. Take care of your parents and wait for them to grow old and see them to the end of their lives. Lin Xian said with a smile, I am a policeman quietly on weekdays, hiding myself in the crowd, but sometimes I doubt my life. It is said that everyone is born with talents, so when I came to this earth, besides being a policeman, do I have any other uses? Am I here to make up the numbers in this world? Mu Qingjian asked with a smile, you are a national hero. If you say that you are just making up the numbers, how can others live? That's now. It was not like this before. Lin Xian smiled and shook his head. At that time, I was really confused. In his previous life, he was like a mad dog, chasing bad guys all over the city. Only when he was investigating a case could he find a little passion. Besides that, sometimes he really doubted the value of his existence. He doubted whether it was right or wrong for him to stick to his dream. What made him stick to it? Mu Qingjian felt a little distressed for some reason. She hugged him again and patted his back gently. She had heard that there were many things wrong with Lin Xian's words. It seemed that he was not talking about the current him, as if he was talking about another person. But, do we need to care about these? Mu Qingjian asked softly, what happened next? One day, I was walking on the street in a police uniform. Lin Xian buried his face in his sister's arms. A child saw me, holding his father with one hand, pointing at me and saying to his father, Dad, I want to be a policeman when I grow up. I was stunned for a long time when I heard the child's words. My originally numb heart suddenly became hot again. I stood on the street, looking at the busy city and the sunset in the sky, and suddenly I understood something. Maybe too many people are busy rushing on the road with their heads down. That's why they need someone to look up at the sky for them. Only with flowers can the seeds of hope be produced. He is the flower, and the child is the seed. Sooner or later, the seeds will take root and sprout. More gorgeous flowers will bloom. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 283. In September, the weather was clear and crisp. Lin Xian was walking in Xiangshan Park with his two sisters. The breeze brushed his cheeks, bringing with it the fresh scent of grass and trees. Listening to the birds singing, he felt the harmony of nature. The forests were colorful. They looked particularly bright under the sunlight. You don't know, when I read novels before, I really believed in the four young masters of Beijing, the four beauties of Beijing, and the four major families of Beijing. Lin Xian laughed and made fun of himself as he walked. Then I watched the poor boy protagonist beat up the four young masters, own the harem, and step on the four major families. It was so cool, and I felt so involved that I wanted to become the protagonist in the book. Who would have thought that when I look back now, it turns out that I was the one who was beaten up in the book. Haha. The sisters of the Mu family laughed so hard that they shook their bodies and leaned forward and backward. Lin Xian's face was full of smiles, laughing at his own stupidity. Sometimes I see something like Red Boy and Young Master on the internet. It's really funny to watch it again at this time. There is a saying, it's cold at the top. The higher you are, the more you live on thin ice. The more ignorant people are, the more inexplicable self-confidence and arrogance they have. This is the law of nature. The clown is you. Mu Qingtian took her brother's arm and smiled coquettishly, my little young master. Bang. After slapping his sister's butt, Lin Xian glared, I'll slap you when I go back tonight. You just talk, come now if you dare. Mu Qingtian made faces at him, her voice was soft and magnetic, with seductive coquettishness. This little vixen, when she arouses people, is more powerful than any aphrodisiac. Lin Xian hated her so much that his teeth ached. Wait for me, sooner or later I will make you cry and call me daddy. If you can't do it, I'm a dog. He turned around and held Mu Qingjian's hand, ignoring her. Mu Qingtian was stunned and gasped. She suddenly felt a sense of crisis that her brother, who she had raised with great difficulty, was going to be snatched away by another woman. And the one who snatched her brother was her own sister. She felt powerless and wanted to laugh. She felt so sad that she wanted to hit him. She rushed up and jumped on Lin Xian in an instant. Her long legs wrapped around her brother's waist, and she became his girlfriend. Lin Xian held one in each hand and carried another on his back. Strolling along the path in the park. Since we can't fall in love like normal couples, then try to give them more time and tenderness. Let them be happier and smile more. People can be selfish, but they can't be without reason. Stinky baby, sing a song for your sister. Mu Qingtian hugged his neck, bit his ear, and acted coquettishly. Mu Qingjian also turned her head to look at him, with gentle eyebrows and soft eyes. Okay. Lin Xian smiled and nodded, singing softly, if I didn't give you flowers at the age of 18, then I'll treat you to a drink at the age of 28. I'll keep you drunk until you say sweet words, and I'll have no regrets in my life. The singing sounded like a spring, as if it had magic. It was like aged wine, the more you taste it, the better it tasted. The eyes of the two sisters had long turned into a pool of autumn water. Mu Qingtian hugged his neck tightly. Mu Qingjian also held his hand tightly. The summer with cicadas chirping incessantly passed. But the romantic autumn came quietly. The three of them walked towards the place where the sun was the brightest. Let's elope together. In the scorching sun, in the clear sky, under love. The next day, in the morning. The sun shone through the windows of the living room and sprinkled on the soft sofa. It fell on Lin Xian, who had a pale face. The little brother had lost his former arrogance at this time, like a helpless child. He stared at the laughing sisters in front of him, preparing gifts for him. I have to go to meet my future father-in-law today. And now there is no word that can describe Lin Xian's nervousness. If I have to say it, it is, I'm so scared. What a poor stinky baby. Mu Qingtian hugged her brother, kissed him, and giggled, don't be afraid, sister will protect you. Really? Lin Xian sneered, if my future father-in-law glares at me, will you help me beat him up? Oh, your majesty, I'm just bragging. Mu Qingtian smiled charmingly, you are the best, you should do it yourself. I really want to beat this female demon. Lin Xian rolled his eyes. Nothing. It's okay. Mu Qingjian sorted out the gift box and smiled and comforted, he won't eat people. Yes, he won't eat, but he will cut me. Lin Xian's face turned pale again. Think about it, I have occupied 2 daughters at once. If it were me, I would have made that yellow-haired man into a human specimen. Lin Xian's eyes showed panic, and he was screaming in his heart. He checked the time. He gritted his teeth and walked out of the house with his 2 sisters. The streets were busy on weekends. A business car drove into an area with beautiful scenery. The so-called compounds in Beijing have not disappeared in the long river of history. There are still some special areas that can still be called compounds. The business car slowly stopped outside a gate. 2 armed police came over, asked, checked, and let go. When the business car drove through the security gate, Lin Xian could feel that the whole car should have been scanned by some kind of instrument. When the car drove into a road in the courtyard, his scalp began to numb gradually. He felt the aura of countless soldiers in the whole courtyard. So many that Lin Xian began to doubt his life. Driving all the way. Sitting in the car, he felt that he was locked by a sniper rifle more than once, and then moved away. Locked again, and then moved away. Such a cycle. It is no exaggeration to say. Even if he is a cheater, if he makes trouble in this courtyard, the possibility of escaping alive should be zero. 5 minutes later, the business car stopped outside a courtyard. The car door opened, and the three siblings got out of the car. The two girls followed their brother with a smile and walked towards the courtyard gate. Who knew that they had just arrived outside the door? The courtyard gate opened, and a beautiful woman was standing in the courtyard with a gentle smile. "Hello, Auntie." Although it was the second meeting, Lin Xian was still a little nervous, embarrassed, and at a loss. Just like a young boy, he didn't have the temperament of a so-called police king. He didn't have the heroic spirit that he used to show off in front of outsiders. However, when the beautiful woman saw Lin Xian like this, her eyes became more kind and gentle. Because only when you care too much will you become more nervous. Is he afraid of her? No. If Lin Xian didn't care about her daughter, why should he lower his posture and be nervous? This is just like the sisters of the Mu family, meeting their brother's parents for the first time, and the same is true. Why are you still standing there like an idiot? We're home. The beautiful woman seemed to have become a loving mother, and smiled softly, "Come in quickly." Lin Xian was slightly stunned and looked at her blankly. "Fool," the sister smiled and scolded. Holding her brother, she walked into the house. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 284. Walking into the courtyard, you will be greeted by the fragrance of flowers and shady green trees. Lin Xian looked around. There are pavilions and flowers. The sun casts mottled light and shadow through the treetops, creating a leisurely and comfortable atmosphere. Walking through the courtyard, I came to a two-story building. A middle-aged woman who looked like a servant opened the door humbly and waited for them. "This is MRSLI. The beautiful woman introduced Lin Xian. "She has been in our family for 20 years. "Hello," Aunt Lin Xian smiled and nodded. "Well." Sister-in-law Li looked straight at Lin Xian, then looked at the beautiful woman. "What a good life." It must be said that Lin Xian's appearance has been highly praised by the Women's Federation. The lowest age is 8 years old, and the highest age is 80 years old. I like his face very much. Are there any advantages to being good-looking? This is nonsense, especially in the eyes of girls. It's like a handsome boy acting like a gangster, that's called flirting. If you are really ugly, then you are a real gangster. Haha. The beautiful woman covered her mouth and smiled softly, a hint of joy appearing between her eyebrows. Yes. Good luck indeed. Who would have thought that his pair of daughters would be looking for him again and again? They actually found someone who was 6 years younger than them. Not to mention them at that time, no one was optimistic about it. If it weren't for the little guy's identity. Half a year has passed. At first, he was the least favored and ridiculed behind his back. Now, it has become the most enviable. That little guy is growing at a speed that makes people feel terrifying, even horrified. The youngest deputy director and lieutenant of the army in the Dragon Kingdom. First-class police merit 7 times, first-class military merit once, 2 honorary titles. Regardless of position, rank, or meritorious deeds, the entire young generation is hung up and beaten. This is not the most extreme thing. The scary thing is that the Dragon Kingdom military is standing behind a little guy. With just one movement of this thigh, it can crush countless people into pieces and turn them into ashes. It is said. This time the little guy made a meritorious deed again. Military merit is also a great achievement. He got trillions back for the country, and even got back a list of people who might subvert the Dragon Kingdom. I heard it from my husband yesterday. 8 ministerial-level officials, more than 20 department-level officials, 4 academicians, and more than 30 professors. Being secretly taken away for investigation, isn't it scary? However, A funny thing also happened. It's hard to give credit to the little guy. He is only 22 years old. Is there anyone who doesn't understand the national conditions of the Dragon Kingdom? Even if the little guy is 30 years old, things are easy to handle. Why is he only 22 years old? Isn't this embarrassing? When I heard the news yesterday, the beautiful woman had fun all night. She was so happy. Because this little guy will become her son-in-law in the future. That's half a child. The son is great, how can a mother be unhappy? When I went out for a walk today, I saw the envious eyes of some well-informed sisters. As a woman, I am very happy when my vanity is greatly satisfied. Walk through the door. The beautiful woman looked at the silly boy in front of her. He bent down and personally brought him slippers. This scene, however, stunned the Mew sisters and sister-in-law Lee. It is said that the more a mother-in-law looks at her son-in-law, the more she likes him. But you are going too far. Is there anyone who loves his son-in-law so much? Lin Xian was also a little messy in the wind and quickly bent over to take the slippers. Sweat broke out on my forehead. I was scared. Because he saw a handsome middle-aged man sitting on the sofa in the living room, looking at him expressionlessly. His eyes were deep and cold, revealing a calmness and majesty that had experienced the world. Time has left traces on his face, but his handsome face has clear lines. A strong sense of oppression rushed towards Lin Xian, which made Lin Xian feel a little stressed. I feel like I'm about to be beaten. Very scary. The three siblings, accompanied by the beautiful woman, came to the living room. Standing in front of the middle-aged uncle. "Hello, Uncle," Lin Xian bowed and saluted. He glanced at the other person from close range and his heart trembled. Actually, he had a good idea of who the elder sisters of the Mew family were. How many powerful people are there in the Long Kingdom with the surname Mew? And this person in front of me. He is also the youngest official in the Dragon Kingdom since its founding. Mew Wentao's indifferent eyes turned sharp and profound. As if he could see into the deepest secrets of people's hearts, he looked at Lin Xian in front of him. It looks like he has a cold expression, but actually he wants to laugh on the inside. Some secrets are no longer secrets at his level. For example, all Lin Xian's information, resume, and terrifying abilities. Originally, in his heart, he was not optimistic about this little guy. Because, youthful and vigorous. When they met, Mew Wentao realized that he was wrong. It was like seeing a ball of light. I also felt a reassuring temperament in this little guy. Although he seemed to be sweating on his nervous forehead, his eyes showed determination. It seemed that even if she didn't give him a good look, he would take his daughter away. "What a courageous dog," Mew Wentao said calmly, "sit down." Suddenly, the three women present all breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Xian also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. "Sit upright." Suddenly, Mew Wentao asked, "How is your mother doing now?" Lin Xian. "What do you mean?" The Mew sisters and the beautiful woman beside him all laughed. They looked at him strangely. "No. What do you mean?" Lin Xian was really confused. Why did the future father-in-law suddenly ask about his mother? Doesn't he feel uneasy? He doesn't know yet. Mew Wentao raised the corner of his mouth and glanced at his wife. The beautiful woman smiled and shook her head, rolling her eyes at her daughters. The Mew sisters suddenly laughed and hugged each other. It was as if something super funny was happening at this moment. Lin Xian wanted to kill someone. What happened? Tell me. I'm so anxious. It seems that you really don't know. Mew Wentao's face sank. Speaking of which, our two families still have some hatred. Lin Xian, Omega. Can you stop scaring me? Mew Wentao said word by word, I was beaten by your mother before. Damn, Lin Xian's head was covered with a waterfall of sweat. The future father-in-law's words are a bit explosive. Is my mother so fierce? That's not right. According to the age, my mother and the future father-in-law are 6 or 7 years apart, right? Why did my mother hit him? What happened? Wasn't it because of you back then? The beautiful woman smiled and rolled her eyes at her husband. My little sister also did it for me. What's wrong with hitting you? Muwentao's expression froze, and he glared at his wife awkwardly. As if to say, the children are here, can't you give me some face? Lin Xian looked at the future father-in-law, and then at the future mother-in-law. This is something. Then, the Mu sisters smiled and told their brother a story. A story about their parents. When Lin Xian finished listening to the story, the look in his eyes when he looked at the future father-in-law changed. Where is your status as a big boss? I didn't expect it. It turns out that the father-in-law is this kind of person. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 285. That year, there was a pair of childhood sweethearts. Because they lived in the same compound, they met almost every day. In the eyes of both parties, one was a little bastard, and the other was a crybaby. Because of the orders of their parents, the two obviously hated each other's children, but they had to be together. The boy had to protect the girl, take care of the girl, and was forced to play with the girl. The girl liked to torture the boy and was also a little troublemaker. If you dare not listen to her, she will cry and then complain. Force the boy to wear a little skirt, play house, and snatch his snacks. The boy also liked to grab her hair, scare her with insects, and play ghosts to tease her. Later, they went to elementary school together, and then to junior high school together. They were still classmates. The boy's grades were getting better and better, and he was forced to help the girl with tutoring. He couldn't resist. Because the girl was too good at acting like a spoiled child and was pretty. The elders all liked her. The girl was also very angry because her parents always liked to talk about the boy's grades. She disliked him even more, and became more fond of teasing the boy, bullying him every day. The boy also hated this double-faced childhood sweetheart, hated her so much. He called her a snotty girl every day, and she only knew how to cry. Later, they went to high school together. They didn't have to stick together every day, and they were in different classes, so they had less time to spend together. But every time after school, they would still go home together, play together, and scold each other together. They still hated each other as always, and wanted to strangle each other to death. Childhood sweethearts. In their respective hearts, they treated each other as cattle and horses. Boy, before I met you, my world was dark. Girl, what happened later? Boy, after I met you, my world was completely dark. Girl. A school bag hit the boy on the head. You dog, go to hell. A few years passed in the blink of an eye, and it was time for the college entrance examination. The boy saw that the girl's grades were too bad, and he was a little worried. He started to help her again. That day, the sun was shining. On a bench, the boy was reading aloud quietly. The girl rested her head on his legs and slept soundly. The college entrance examination was finally over. The boy went to Shanghai, and the girl stayed in Beijing. They were completely separated. When they were in school, the boy always thought of that annoying, crybaby. The girl also always thought of that little bastard, dog thing. They both remembered those unforgettable memories of their childhood. She sprained her ankle, and he carried her on his back for 2 kilometers back home. He didn't eat, so she gave him her lunch. Some people said that the girl was a vixen behind her because she was pretty. The boy who got the news beat up all those people and called their parents. That time, the boy was beaten by his father with a belt and couldn't get out of bed. The girl stayed by his side and took care of him like a little mother. Countless memories. echoed in their minds. Boy, I miss her. Girl, I miss him so much. That day, the girl bought a plane ticket and went to Shanghai. She went to the boys' school. But when she saw another girl standing next to the boy she had been thinking about day and night on the playground, they looked a little intimate. She didn't see the boy's expression, but she saw the girl's expression. Admiration, liking, obsession. The girl felt as if the sky had fallen. She didn't know how she left. Unconsciously, she ran to her grandfather's house and hid in the military compound. She was in a daze for several days in the military compound, until she saw a little girl. The little girl was obviously in her teens, but there was a group of boys following her, all calling her big sister. Beside the little girl, there was also an honest little boy, who stayed with her all the time. The girl discovered the little boy and girl in front of her were also childhood sweethearts and liked each other. Because they were too young and ignorant. The most fun thing was that through chatting, the little girl was a school bully. And the little boy was actually a school bully. He also became good friends with them and recognized a little sister. The girl just didn't expect it. She just talked about her experience. She said her childhood sweetheart had changed his mind. Her little sister was so angry. The next day, her little sister and her little follower didn't show up. She waited until the third day. Her little sister appeared in front of her triumphantly and told her. They went to the Magic City to help her beat up the unfaithful man. The girl was stunned at the time. You have to know that the two little things in front of her are only 14 or 15 years old. How dare they? That day, the girl hugged her little sister and cried all night. The next day, her childhood sweetheart with a bruised face found her. As a result, she was beaten by her little sister again. When the boy explained with a smile, he didn't like anyone else at all. He didn't like the girl standing next to him that day. He had rejected her countless times, but the other party just pestered him. The girl finally opened up her heart. She also went to the Magic City and school with the boy in person. The boy also said in front of everyone that the girl was his girlfriend. That night too. Boy and girl holding hands. Walking around campus like a young couple. Boy, do you still mean what you say? Girl, what? Boy, we agreed when we were playing house when we were young that I would marry you when I grow up. Girl. Boy, when I graduate, we will get married. The girl didn't answer, but snuggled into the boy's arms. After graduation, they got married. 1 year later, they have a pair of lovely twin daughters. After listening to the ridiculous stories of the future father-in-law and mother-in-law, Lin Xian was actually envious. My parents are childhood sweethearts, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law are also childhood sweethearts. Why don't I? Lin Xian, this world owes me a green plum. Aren't you satisfied with having two sisters? Mu Qingtian leaned over and looked at her brother fiercely. Mu Qingjian's eyes also became evil, and she wanted to kill someone. When a couple has been together for a long time, the other party has one expression and one action. You can guess what the other person is thinking. The expression on the stinky brother's face has betrayed him deeply. Impossible, I didn't, you are thinking too much. Lin Xuanyi sternly denied it 3 times. Go to hell. Mu Qingtian smiled and scolded, and started to beat his brother. Mu Qingjian also smiled and punched Lin Xian twice. The Mu family couple sat aside and watched their 3 little children playing around. You said, is it fate? The beautiful woman leaned in her husband's arms. Who would have thought that the little sisters back then would now become in-laws? Maybe. Mu Wentao doesn't believe this. But don't you believe it's useful? Holding his wife in his arms and looking at Lin Xian who was being bullied by his 2 daughters, his eyes became complicated. The 2 pots of flowers that were carefully taken care of were not only pulled out, but the pots were also taken away by you. Anticipation, nervousness, worry, finally turned into a sigh. The couple held each other's hands and looked at them lovingly. It is shallow and deep, but the joy is still young. All good. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 286. Ministry of Public Security. Lin Xian, wearing a military uniform, walked into the building, attracting onlookers. The military green and the rank of lieutenant were really eye-catching. Especially the square honor on the chest of Lin Xian's military uniform. Represents military rank, qualifications, awards, service, and the situation of the unit to which he belongs. People who know the business can get a general idea of the soldier at a glance. Because of the understanding, seeing the honor on Lin Xian's chest, I was stunned. There is not only a first-class military merit on it, but also an honorary title. This is not just scary. But Lin Xian was embarrassed. It was not intentional to show off in a military uniform, but the minister's order. He came to the minister's office unimpeded, and the secretary greeted him with a smile. That smile was not a professional smile, but a warm smile. Now Lin Xian walks into the minister's office like walking through a city gate. This is not a treatment that ordinary people can enjoy. Don't look down on the minister's full-time secretary. The lowest administrative level is the director level. Half a level higher than Lin Xian now. I'm here. The secretary smiled and opened the door. The minister has been waiting for you for a long time. How is the boss feeling? Lin Xian asked with a smile and blinked. The secretary smiled, blinked, and whispered, "You have to go out in a while." Going out? Lin Xian was puzzled. Going out to work? Then why did he come here in military uniform? Lin Xian thought he was here to receive the medal at first. Now it seems not. Walk into the office. The old man was sitting behind the desk reviewing documents. Seeing Lin Xian, he nodded and pointed to the reception sofa. Then he raised his wrist and glanced at the time on his watch. Lin Xian was puzzled and walked to the reception sofa and sat down. The secretary also brought tea. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. The old man got up and said to Lin Xian with a smile, "Let's go." "Where are we going?" Lin Xian got up. Followed the old man out of the office and got into a business car. Lin Xian also found out later. These big bosses usually don't take car number and usually travel in business cars. Only when there are major events or some special occasions will they take a dedicated car. For example, one time, the old man specially welcomed the national hero at the airport. That time was also when Lin Xian came back from Baibei. About half an hour. Longguo General Political Building. When getting off the car, Lin Xian was a little confused. Why did he come to the military's territory? A group of people greeted him at the door and then entered the building. Lin Xian followed the minister like a little transparent. There were a group of big guys in front, and I saw 5 generals alone. There was also an acquaintance, my uncle. When Lu Xingguo saw Lin Xian, his expression was serious. But his eyes were filled with a kind smile. There was definitely no small talk in this occasion. Until entering the building and taking the elevator. Arrived at a meeting room on the top floor. Suddenly, everyone stopped. One by one, all eyes looked at Lin Xian. Shit, Lin Xian's expression froze, and he felt scared. "What are you doing? Go in." The old man smiled and said to him, "Someone is waiting for you inside." Lin Xian's heart beat violently twice. The head of the Ministry of Public Security is not qualified to go in now, can't he accompany him? Who is the person inside? His heart beat violently, and Lin Xian took a deep breath. Watching two guards in casual clothes and exuding the breath of soldiers open the door. He walked in. What came into view was a small meeting room with a strong military style and color. There was only one person in the meeting room at this time. An old man in a dark green military uniform. No military rank, no identification, and the military uniform is also very special. Like a green Zhongshan suit. But even without a military rank, Lin Xian still felt a strong aura on him. In his 60s, he was tall and straight, as steady as a mountain, majestic and awe-inspiring. His demeanor was extremely calm, his eyes were calm, but he revealed an indescribable majesty. Lin Xian was stunned. He looked directly at the old man's face. He saw a familiar face. He could also find the shadow of his mother on this face. No, it should be said that his mother inherited half of the old man's appearance. At this moment, an indescribable but real blood relationship surged in Lin Xian's chest. The old man's expression gradually became complicated. He looked at Lin Xian in front of him quietly. Gradually, there was a trace of emotion and guilt, which spread from his old face and turned into a smile. Have you been doing well these years? The old man sighed softly. Not bad. Lin Xian's lips were slightly dry, and his voice was hoarse. Dad and Mom are both fine. That's good. The old man's old face dimmed slightly. What happened back then? It's over, it's over. Lin Xian smiled and said, I told you, our family is fine. Ha ha. The old man smiled and nodded. But the next second, the look in the old man's eyes changed instantly. No emotion, no nostalgia, no warmth and kindness. It became as cold as ice, as calm as a mirror, and like a sharp sword, breaking the space of the small meeting room. Pierced deeply into Lin Xian's eyes. What's wrong with your body? This sentence was like a thunderclap. It seemed to condense countless lives and deaths, with a chilling murderous intent. It hit Lin Xian hard, making him feel like he was trapped in an ice cellar. But, Lin Xian remained silent. Because he knew that sooner or later, someone would ask him about his body. After all, that terrifying ability is not something that ordinary humans should have. At this moment, the old man represented not a grandfather or a relative. He was a soldier, a country, and a pillar of defense. Any person, thing, or thing that dared to threaten the country, he would wipe it out without hesitation. Even if this person was his grandson. Lin Xian's expression was calm, and his eyes were equally calm. He looked into the old man's eyes fearlessly, but said nothing. For a long while, the old man's expression dimmed slightly, and he seemed a little disappointed. But a look of relief flashed in his eyes again. He said, one day, if you dare to stand against the country and the people, I will kill you myself. After saying this, a shocking momentum gushed out from the old man, carrying endless murderous intent. But Lin Xian grinned and smiled. And facing his grandson's smile, the old man was stunned, and his murderous aura disappeared instantly. He sighed and laughed. The terrible momentum also disappeared without a trace. He turned back into an ordinary old man in military uniform. He slowly turned around and picked up a mahogany box on the table behind him. And then slowly opened it. A golden red metal appeared in Lin Xian's eyes. When he saw the metal, his heart began to beat wildly. Second level combat hero honorary title medal. God of War medal. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 287. Why is the second level combat hero honorary title called the God of War medal? Because it represents the recognition of the country. It will only be awarded to those true combat heroes. They are the kind of combat heroes who are outstanding and have killed countless enemies. This is the respectful title given to those combat heroes by the people. Recognition of the older generation of combat heroes. The honorary title of combat hero is divided into 3 levels. Second level, first level, special level. But no matter which level, they are all gods of war. Lin Xian, whose heart was pounding, was really stunned this time. How could it be a wartime honorary title? How could it be the God of War medal? This kind of medal will only appear when a national war breaks out, or a special battle between countries. Do you have any questions? The old man picked up the medal, his face was full of emotion, and his tone was serious, because you killed 15 soldiers from the Sakura country, because you found something that belonged to the motherland, because it was a contest between countries, so, you are the first person to receive this medal in non-wartime. To put it bluntly, Lin Xian is now a soldier in peacetime. The only one who was deified, the god of war. Even if he was only a second-level combat hero. As long as the old generation of god of war did not come out, he would be the younger generation, the new god of war. This is why the old man said those words before taking out the medal. Because the meaning of this medal is too heavy. Is anyone worthy of wearing it? Even Lin Xian himself had never thought about it. One day, he could actually keep up with the footsteps of his predecessors. No, now he is qualified to walk shoulder to shoulder with his predecessors. What an honor! Remember, no matter what you do in the future, you must think about the meaning of this medal and think about whether you are worthy of it. The old man picked up the ribbon on the medal and raised his arm. Slowly put the ribbon on Lin Xian's neck. Then carefully, put the medal on his chest straight. Lin Xian slowly lowered his head. Looking at the golden red medal on his military uniform. Inexplicably, he felt a huge stone pressing on his chest. The heaviness made him a little breathless. While he was stunned, the old man picked up a pair of shoulder straps representing Major. He took off the original shoulder straps for Lin Xian and replaced them with new ones. He brought a new medal and replaced the old one. Until Lin Xian came to his senses. His expression was so complicated. Major and God of War medal. This was the reward given to him by the country. It was much bigger than he expected. It was too exaggerated. Now, I'll give you a choice. A kind smile finally appeared on the old man's face. Do you want to continue to be a policeman or join the army? Lin Xian was silent. In fact, normal people know how to choose. With Grandpa here. With his ability, he is still a new generation of combat hero. In the future, he can walk sideways in the army like a crab. He can have his own military position and a unit. Maybe one day, he can become a general. For any man, it is a huge temptation. But Lin Xian's face was full of vigor and sunshine. I am still a policeman. The old man was stunned. He looked at his grandson and sighed. But a relieved smile appeared on his face again. Keep going, I'm proud of you. Proud of me? Lin Xian was dazed. Hot mist emerged from his eyes. For the first time, I really felt the warmth from the old man in front of me. That was the most real family affection. Lin Xian shouted with a hoarse voice. Grandpa! Leaving the General Political Department building and getting into the business car. Lin Xian, holding the metal box, was stunned. The old man on the side was looking at the little guy's shoulders. Looking at the shoulder straps representing the rank of major, he breathed a sigh of relief. Very curious, why did Lin Xian choose to stay and be a policeman? Not going to the army, giving up a bright future. Is this brain a bit sick? Moving his eyes, the old man looked at the metal box in Lin Xian's hand. Even as a public security official, his eyes revealed envy without disguising. The honorary title of combat hero. As long as he is a man of Dragon Country, not some defective product. Who doesn't want such honor? But how many people have been deified in the entire history of Dragon Country? Recalling the combat heroes of the older generation. Even some generals, when they see them, They have to salute honestly and greet politely. No matter how awesome you are as a public security official, can you do it? The old man smiled and shook his head. He can no longer see the future path of the little guy beside him. The Ministry of Public Security is definitely not the end of Lin Xian. It's even just a small starting point. He is only 22 years old. Deputy Director, Major, Police King, God of War, countless merits. If nothing unexpected happens. As long as he has that ability. He will definitely be a giant in the future. I just don't know whether it is public security, national security, military, national defense, or guards. The old man's eyes also revealed relief and expectation. Now, it is the world of young people. These old guys can rest assured. Minister. Lin Xian raised his head and looked at the old man. What? The old man smiled gently. You said, now I am a combat hero. Lin Xian asked with a smile, can I marry 2 wives? Ha ha. The old man was stunned and laughed, I also had this dream when I was young. Is it really impossible? Lin Xian was depressed. In fact, you try hard. The old man stopped laughing and his expression was solemn, when one day your merit can break the rules, maybe. Maybe what? Lin Xian's eyes brightened instantly. Is it really possible? Sai Heiwen. Lin Xian, who walked into the yard in military uniform, saw Lao Wu and the guard squad standing in front of him. Salute. Lao Wu's expression was serious and solemn. Bang. The whole guard squad stood at attention and saluted. They saluted Lin Xian. It was also the medal on Lin Xian's military uniform. It was also the honor of combat hero on the medal. The Mu sisters stood quietly in the distance. They looked at their brother with complicated eyes as he returned the salute to the guard. Their faces and eyes were already filled with pride. Because that was their man, the man they chose themselves. He was the son-in-law recognized by their parents and a hero recognized by the country. As a woman, she could have such a man. Wouldn't she be proud? Especially when she saw him with a gentle smile like the sun on his face. When he walked towards them step by step. The eyes of the 2 sisters were already filled with tenderness. They could hear their own throbbing hearts. They found that the man who was walking towards them had grown up. He became a giant. He had enough power to protect them under his wings. He had the power to make a big fuss in the heavenly palace and bring the princess of the heaven down to earth. He became the new generation of fighting heroes of the Dragon Kingdom. This is their man. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 288. We ordinary people are so happy today. In the bathtub, enjoying the massage of the 2 sisters' hands. Lin Xian hummed a song proudly and squinted his eyes comfortably. Ha ha. The 2 beautiful girls laughed and shook their heads. Looking at their complacent brother. He should be proud, happy, and even proud. Now Lin Xian is in the younger generation. No one of his age is qualified to compare with him. His level and merits are completely out of that level. He has begun to be qualified to compete with the middle-aged generation. Such a growth rate is terrible and scary. But no one will be jealous, and they can't be jealous. No one dares to trip him up. The Lu family and the Mu family will not allow it. Because Lin Xian can already represent the new generation of the 2 families. He has become the leader of the younger generation. It may even become the future, carrying the tripod of the 2 families. Unless Lin Xian himself goes astray. Otherwise, who dares to touch him? But Lin Xian never cares about these. Even hide far away. I just want to be a policeman quietly. This dream has never changed. Suddenly, the phone next to me rang. The expressions of the 2 girls changed. It's night now, whose call is it? Lin Xian also had an MMP expression and opened his eyes. He took the phone handed over by Mu Qingtian. He held Mu Qingjian's small hand with one hand. He sighed and felt that he had become a beauty. No, it should be a physique of trouble. What God gives you, he will definitely take away something. Lin Xian had thought about it in the past. Why did he encounter so many cases? This is the price he has to pay. Like a bomb, it explodes wherever it goes. Seeing the incoming call on the phone, Lin Xian frowned slowly. The minister called. Lin Xian answered the phone. Hello, minister. Not very good. The old man's words sounded coldly in the phone. Come to the airport and get ready to go abroad. Going abroad, Lin Xian was confused and not prepared at all. Ended the call. He looked at his two sisters with an apologetic look. Mu Qingtian pouted. Mu Qingjian smiled gently. Shall I tell you a story? Lin Xian got up from the bathtub. He looked at his two sisters wiping him with a towel and said with a smile, this is a story about a prince and Cinderella. The two girls were curious. It is said that one day at 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, the bell rang, and Cinderella was leaving. Lin Xian and his two sisters walked out of the bathroom and walked towards the cloakroom. The prince couldn't bear to leave her, so he grabbed Cinderella. He said gently, Dear, can you not leave? Cinderella shook her head and said, No, the time is up, I have to leave. The prince hugged Cinderella and said affectionately, I can't bear to leave you, do you really have to leave? Cinderella said, Big brother, if you add more time or stay overnight, you will pay more. This is a story that has become popular in later generations, but now Lin Xian is the first to say it. Puff, the two smart sisters burst into laughter. Instantly understood how frivolous the Cinderella and the prince were. A pair of small fists also hit the brother's chest. So, we were all deceived by fairy tales. Lin Xian was wearing clothes and winking at the sisters, just like, when you saw the stone-turned Monkey King, who froze the 7 fairies, do you really think he didn't do anything? If I hadn't seen that there were exactly 7 Calabash brothers, and they could be put together to become a big stone, I almost believed it. Haha. You are so bad. The two girls laughed coquettishly. Such a good story, why does it feel like driving a car when it comes to the younger brother's mouth? Are they not innocent, or is the younger brother too dirty? However, the pain of parting was washed away by laughter. How could they not know that Lin Xian was teasing them on purpose? Coaxing them. After changing clothes, Lin Xian stretched out his arms and hugged them in his arms. Kiss this one, and then kiss that one. Let's go. Lin Xian let them go, walked to the entrance and put on his shoes. He gritted his teeth and walked out of the house. If he stayed any longer, he would have to take off his police uniform and military uniform. Then he really couldn't leave. Beijing, airport. Lin Xian saw the minister and a group of white shirts. No luggage. The old man glanced at Lin Xian, who came empty-handed. Lin Xian shook his head and asked curiously, what case? He was called out in the middle of the night, and it was so urgent. It was probably a case, a big case. A scientist from Longguo died mysteriously abroad. The old man's expression was cold. Check it out. Lin Xian frowned. Why would a scientist from Longguo be in a foreign country? Not just Longguo. Every country has scientists working in key research fields in other countries. For example, there is a saying, science has no borders. There are many major studies in the world that are completed by scientists from many countries. The completed scientific research projects are all jointly owned. Don't scientists know that it will be dangerous after going abroad? Of course they know. They know even more that science has no borders, but scientists do. But for the sake of the motherland's development, I will resolutely take the risk of going abroad. After completing certain projects, I will also bring the materials back to my country. The key issue is that sometimes you may not be able to take these things away. It is even possible that people cannot even leave and will die mysteriously for no apparent reason. Those who understand will understand. In front of us, such an emergency has occurred. The cause of death of this scientist must be investigated. Is it a natural death or homicide? Natural death is easy to say. If it is homicide, Longwo is no longer the same as it used to be. If there is no explanation, Longwo will give them an explanation. It's like, a scientist from our country died mysteriously in your country. That's really sorry. A scientist from your country may die tomorrow. Do you want to try? Which country? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. Zhuhua country, the old man replied coldly. The members of the Special Criminal Case Task Force also arrived one after another at this time. This kind of incident has occurred. The two countries have also negotiated, and the other party agreed that Longwo would send an investigation team. But weapons are not allowed, and the safety of the investigation team will be guaranteed. These are all conventional routines, and all countries play this way. It's ridiculous to investigate a case alone like in movies and TV series. And this case must be handed over to the Special Criminal Case Team. Their abilities are obvious to all. Of course, Lin Xian is too capable. At the same time, the boss above is also angry. Anyone with a discerning eye can see it. How could a living person die mysteriously? The dead person is a top scientist. The key is, a scientific research project in Zhuhua country is about to be completed. He died at this time. Isn't this nonsense? Lin Xian took the team members and walked directly onto the plane. The expressions of the old man and a group of white shirts were very strange. They knew how good Lin Xian was at making trouble. This time, the superior directly named him to go. What is he going to do? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 289. On the plane, there were not only the members of the Special Criminal Case Team. There were also 4 translators and 4 Longwo diplomats. This lineup was already exaggerated. It represented how much Longwo valued the death of the scientist. At this time, Lin Xian was holding a document. An exaggerated document. Wang Jing, male, 54 years old, an expert in launch vehicle and satellite technology, a senior consultant of a research group, one of the participants in satellite navigation technology and deep space exploration technology. That series of titles made Lin Xian shudder. Except for not being an academician, this top scientist has won all kinds of scientific research honors. He has developed missiles, satellites, participated in the lunar exploration project, and built the Baidu system. He can be said to be one of the top bigwigs in the scientific community of Longwo. No wonder the superiors were furious and sent people to investigate. This bigwig Wang Jing can be compared with the national treasure. Why do you still want to go to the country of wine? Sometimes you have to admit the technical field of other countries. In some places, Longwo is indeed not as good as them. Let me give you a simple example. War soldiers, also known as super soldiers. At first, they were systematically cultivated by Zhuhua country. It is not an exaggeration to say that war soldiers are the king of single soldiers. Of course, as technology advances, old products will be eliminated. Lin Xian thought of drones, mechanical dogs, and bionic fish in the future. In the future, there will be few places for living people in wars. Even war soldiers will not be used for a few years. They will also be eliminated in the long river of history. The flight time from Longwo to Zhuhua country is about 10 hours. Lin Xian couldn't sleep, so he chatted with several translators next to him and learned to speak German. As a result, several translators couldn't learn it. 5 hours later, they looked at Lin Xian as if he was a monster. It's not their fault. After rebirth, Lin Xian's memory is comparable to photographic memory. For example, in German, the translators said a sentence and explained it. Lin Xian could learn a sentence in just 5 hours. Lin Xian could already communicate slowly with 4 translators in German. Isn't it scary? One learns, 4 teach. Another 5 hours later, the 4 translators began to doubt their lives. They suspected that they came to Earth just to make up the numbers in front of a species called genius. They seemed to be a bunch of trash. Not only them. 4 dragon diplomats and members of the Special Criminal Case Task Force. They looked at Lin Xian with a complicated look, and their scalps were numb. Do you want to believe in science? Get lost. About 12 hours. Zhuhua Country, Frankfurt International Airport. The staff of the Dragon Consulate General and Zhuhua Country appeared at the airport to greet them. Lin Xian exchanged a few words with the staff of the Consulate General and looked at the Zhuhua Country police. There are 2 types of police in Zhuhua Country: federal police and state police. Among them, there are about 35,700 federal police. There are about 218,700 state police. The police who appeared in front of them were from the federal government and Frankfurt. The death of a top scientist in Dragon Country is a big event. The local police also launched a joint investigation to find out the truth. But, to no avail. Scientist Wang Jing is dead, and the cause of death cannot be found. From a scientific and forensic perspective, it is a natural death. But, Longguo does not believe it. In a police car. At this time, 2 police inspectors from Zhuhua Country are sitting in front of Lin Xian. Zhuhua Country's police rank system is similar to Longguo's. The ranks include police inspectors, police sergeants, and police officers. However, except for the 2 levels of police inspectors, other levels are divided into 4 levels. The 2 police inspectors in front of him are 1 level 1 and 1 level 2. Both are responsible for investigating the mysterious death of scientist Wang Jing. In Lin Xian's hand, he is holding an investigation report translated into Chinese. Or, it is the investigation file of the entire mysterious death case. September 7, morning. A researcher from a research institute reported that Longguo scientist Wang Jing died in an apartment at the research base. The police arrived and conducted an on-site investigation. Then the forensic doctor arrived and performed an on-site autopsy. Confirmed, natural death. Lin Xian put down the report, looked at the 2 police inspectors in front of him, smiled and said in German, "Is it really a natural death?" The 2 policemen were surprised, confused, and angry in a blink of an eye, and they didn't say anything. Surprised, because Lin Xian can speak German. Confused, because why did he ask that? Angry, because Lin Xian suspected them. No problem, Lin Xian continued to say in German, "Sorry, I'm not very good at German, I may have said the wrong thing." Through pupils, micro-expressions, and heartbeats, he has confirmed that there is no problem with the 2 police officers in front of him. But it is precisely because there is no problem that it is more troublesome. It means that Wang Jing's death is most likely not related to them. They have all investigated seriously and have not found out the truth. If Wang Jing's death is not a natural death, things will develop in other places. About 50 minutes. A row of motorcades entered a research area and came to an apartment building in the experimental area. This building is a place where some scientific researchers are specially arranged to live in a laboratory. Everyone entered the elevator and went upstairs. 7th floor. After passing through a corridor, we arrived at the door of an apartment. The gate was cordoned off and there were special police officers guarding it. Along the way, Lin Xian found many surveillance cameras. Outside the apartment building, the elevator, the corridor, there was almost no blind spot surveillance. Everyone put on shoe covers, gloves, lifted the curtain, and entered Wang Jing's residence. The layout of the whole room was very Western, the furniture was arranged in an orderly manner, and it was full of artistic sense. In the living room, on a floor, there were seen trace-fixing lines drawn. These white lines can well mark the position and posture of the deceased's body. Combined with photos, people can intuitively know the original appearance of the body. It can also effectively protect and maintain the scene, which is convenient for case investigation. Without Lin Xian's instructions, Wang Meng and Lu Changjiang had already walked into the scene. Lu Changjiang's eyes were fixed on the white lines. As a top forensic doctor, he could easily identify the state of the body at the time through these white lines. Wang Meng surveyed the indoor environment and even took out a mini magnifying glass to effectively check the ground. Looking for some footprints, fingerprints, or some abnormal fibers, dust and other traces. Lin Xian did not disturb the team members' work. He walked towards the kitchen. He could see that the kitchen was very clean and someone often cleaned and wiped it. But, there were no signs of frequent cooking. Then came the study room and the bathroom. 2 hours later, Wang Meng and Lu Changjiang stood in front of Lin Xian, their expressions solemn, and shook their heads. "Let's go and see the body." Lin Xian walked out of the room. Half an hour later, a freezer dedicated to storing corpses in Frankfurt. A body wrapped in a transparent body bag was taken out of the freezer and placed on the dissection table. When he opened the body bag and saw the body in front of him, Lin Xian suddenly frowned. Something was wrong with the body. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Qixun Zhong. Chapter 290. Lin Xian's eyes gradually became cold as he stared at the body in front of him. Lu Changjiang's expression began to change after seeing the body. "Quickly come closer and stare at the head of the corpse, focusing on the face." Looking at the weird purple-gray color, he said coldly, "Suffocate to death." The signs of corpses that died of suffocation are due to the high degree of congestion in the blood vessels of the head and face. Due to hypoxia, the capillary endothelial cells are degenerated and infiltrated, increasing their internal pressure, resulting in facial abnormalities. For example, if an ordinary person cannot breathe, the face will become red, blood accumulated, purple, the eyes will bulge, the lips will be purple and black, and the mouth will be wide open. There was something obviously wrong with the death state in front of him. Why does the investigation report of the Hop country still mention natural death? There are no strangulation marks on the neck, no abnormalities in the mouth and nose, no signs of strangulation, and no signs of mechanical suffocation. Lu Changjiang stood up and looked at Lin Xian. There is a high probability that he died from a heart attack that caused hypoxia and suffocation. The deceased did not have any heart disease. Lin Xian shook his head. Through the investigation report, he clearly remembered Wang Jing's physical condition. No, not a heart attack. Lu Changjiang shook his head. To use a metaphor, when people are laughing, frightened, or overstimulated, they can easily lead to heart disease. Just like when we watch horror movies, there are not a few people who are scared to death every year. In many cases, there are cases of death due to hypoxia and suffocation due to heart problems. Laughter and excitement can also lead to these types of deaths. Lu Changjiang said, "These types of deaths are all natural deaths. Of course, they may also be homicides." "Why do you say that?" "For example, if you pretend to be a ghost and scare people to death, this is homicide. Not scared to death." Lin Xian recalled the photo of the deceased in the investigation report and the traces at the scene. He fell to the ground normally, with no signs of struggle, very similar to sudden death. Lu Changjiang then began to examine the body. Every part of the body, including the hair, scalp, and some hidden places, was checked. Finally, he stood up and shook his head, Sorry, we need a full autopsy, otherwise we won't be able to tell the true situation. But a comprehensive autopsy does not exist. Wang Jing's identity was there, so he couldn't destroy the body. It's probably useless to move. If it was a homicide, the other party's method was very clever. It should be difficult to find out the truth. Or did the other party know they would not destroy the body? Let's go. Lin Xian led the team away and returned to the crime scene. Is there any way to cause human beings to suffocate to death without intrusion? Lin Xian asked the team members behind him. Everyone looked at each other and began to think deeply. Thinking about it, it's almost impossible. Unless, sealed. Lin Xian began to check the entire room, doors, windows, floors, bathroom, and kitchen. People's residences definitely need air circulation. The results of the investigation were also normal, and the circulation of the room was very good. It is absolutely impossible to suffocate one alive. What's more, if one is suffocated to death, there will be signs of struggle. From the traces of Wang Jing's fall on the ground, it was obvious that there was no struggle. The falling posture is also very reasonable and nothing unusual. Returning to the hall again, Lin Xian looked at the fixed lines of scene traces on the ground and fell into deep thought. Still something is wrong. It was obviously suffocation, but why was there no sign of struggle after falling? But if it wasn't for suffocation, the deceased's body would be even worse. How could he commit suicide if there were no traces of intrusion? Is there any way to control the human body's suffocation and death without touching the human body? Lin Xian looked up at Lu Changjiang. Result. Lu Changjiang's eyes became strange when he looked at him. Instead, are you talking about ghost? Lin Xian slapped his forehead. What the hell, isn't it? How could such a thing be possible, huh? Lin Xian's eyes accidentally looked towards the kitchen and saw the microwave oven. Suddenly his expression changed. What did he think of? Can the microwave be heated? Sometimes we put film on some containers. But during the heating process, the plastic film will not be damaged. Sudden. What controls the human respiratory system? Lin Xian continued to ask, is it the heart? No, it's the brain, the respiratory center. Lu Changjiang shook his head. To put it bluntly, breathing is controlled by the cerebral cortex and the respiratory center. Brain. Lin Xian's expression changed. Is there a way to directly destroy the brain without it being visible on the outside? This. Lu Changjiang thought for a while. I don't understand this. Lin Xian raised his hand. On the side, Wang Meng sent a satellite phone and dialed the country directly to find Lu Yan. Sister Lu, help me find an expert and ask. He expressed his thoughts. About half an hour later, a domestic call came. But it's not Lu Yan, but an expert. The other party said something like this, as long as the incident particle is small enough and the moving speed or energy is large enough, it can pass through any material without destroying it. It's like the principle of a microwave oven, right? Lin Xian's eyes lit up. Right. The expert said, physically speaking, material penetration can be regarded as wave or quantum penetration. Laser and electromagnetic wave penetration are both based on the same principle. From a quantum perspective, it is to transfer energy one by one. This is also why microwave ovens can heat and penetrate without damaging the exterior. Give the phone to Lu Yan. Lin Xian took a deep breath. What's the matter? Lu Yan asked. Ask the boss for permission to conduct a comprehensive autopsy on Wang Jing's body. A craniotomy is required. Lin Xian said coldly, I suspect that Wang Jing's death was caused by someone destroying his brain. An hour later, the minister called and said only 2 words. Okay. In an autopsy room, the forensic doctors of Longguo and Zhuhegao are preparing to perform a joint autopsy. There are also the Longguo Consulate General and the local senior officials of Zhuhegao. All of them are present to watch the autopsy. The entire comprehensive autopsy process lasted about 2 hours. When the forensic doctors of both countries came out, their faces were so gloomy. Confirmed. Someone used some special means to destroy Wang Jing's brain in a way that could not be detected from the outside. Homicide. In a conference room. The people of Longguo and Zhuhiguo quarreled fiercely. Lin Xian leaned back in his chair and looked at them coldly. Since it was confirmed that he was murdered, we must investigate it thoroughly. Find the murderer. The two sides also quarreled over who would lead the investigation of the case. In the end, it was decided that both sides would jointly set up a special task force. Joint investigation. But is it really that simple? Lin Xian inexplicably had a bad premonition. Not only him. The team members also looked at their team leader one after another, and their teeth ached. The reason is very simple. Have you ever seen a small case in any case taken over by Lin Xian? This is the rhythm of something big happening.